Wow. Boy, oh boy. What is there to say today? The dumbest people online, the people that you always ask yourself, why the f does this person make any money, have all been exposed as Russian agents. So the answer is nobody was watching them. It's bots. It's millions of dollars from Russia. It's millions of dollars from Israel. It's millions of dollars from, you know, oil and gas billionaires. People don't like this. They're dumb as fuck. You were right. Ghouls and ghosts, watch them. No, it's literally just international money. We also have Tim Pool's dad called into the Majority Report. During the Majority Report celebration on the initial news, Tim Pool's dad called in. So we're going to have fun with that. Does anybody have the link to the Tim Pool call? I don't have it.
Say, whoopsie. I don't really care about getting invited places. Yeah, right. So go live in your Grift echo chamber where you guys can play songs with bad audio and say, whoopsie. Whoopsie. She was offered a tour, bubble tea, sushi, and poker with the boys. Bubble tea, sushi, poker with the boys. We put on some music, bubble tea, sushi, poker with the boys. She was offered a tour, sushi, basically poker for fun, bubble tea, sushi, and poker with the boys. She was offered cheeseburgers, we have sushi, bubble tea, we put on some music, bubble tea, sushi, poker with the boys. She was offered a tour, sushi, poker with the boys. We had the table, we play micro stakes, poker game with the boys. I'm gonna do something I don't normally do. Micro stakes.
All right, folks, 646-257-3920. See you in the fun half with
micro, like Tim Pool playing micro stakes poker is very funny because he's obviously like he's a dumb piece, so he's obviously bad at poker, right? But his ego can't handle it, so he makes you play micro stakes so he can be like, oh, I wasn't even trying, you know, it's just micro stakes, we're just doing it for fun, right? Because his ego can't handle being bad at poker. Because poker, you know, being good at it requires a lot of effort, intelligence. And so, want to play some micro stakes? Bro, you're getting paid $100,000 a week. Put some weight on the table, you He's like, God damn. Tim Pool's dad. Is it in there? Yes!
Hey.
Oh, you hear me now?
Yeah, Tim Pool's
Probably doing some spending there too.
calling from a 773 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Well, if you're talking to me, it's Tim's dad. I'm in Utah.
Hey.
You hear me now?
Yeah, Tim Pool's. Is this Tim Pool's actual dad?
Hi, this is Tim Pool's dad. Calling into the Majority Report. Now, I don't know if Tim Pool's dad is stupid. I'm gonna go ahead and go out on a limb and say he is. Just because someone is not very bright doesn't mean they're a bad person. But I gotta tell you, you know your son is facing like federal jail time, right? Obviously, he hasn't been indicted yet, but like the company that he was getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars a week was indicted for being a Russian cutout, you know, espionage. Your son is in serious legal jeopardy. You're like, do you understand that, right? Like, maybe he won't actually be prosecuted because, of course, it is the Democrats. They are cowardly. But this is funny because not only is it just ridiculous to call into the enemy of your son, I mean, like, legitimately, Majority Report is the enemy of Tim Pool, but to do so when your son is facing real jail time. Mike, why do you say that? Well, the reason why I say that is because Tim Pool just tweeted this. I have been contacted by the FBI as a potential victim of a crime. The FBI believes I have information relevant to an ongoing criminal investigation and have requested a voluntary interview. I will be offering my assistance in this matter. I replied, it looks really guilty if you get a lawyer and claim the Fifth Amendment. Talk to them willingly and they'll have your back. Don't listen to anyone here, Tim. Talk to them without a lawyer. They're trying to help you. You could get a lawyer later. He's a smart dude, so he doesn't need a lawyer. Exactly. Like, what? He would just be wasting money to be going to those. You know, see how much lawyer expenses are for Donald Trump? Tim Pool earned his money. He doesn't need to get a lawyer. That's expensive. Okay, everybody, Tim Pool, cover your ears. Everybody else, Tim, did you cover your ears?
Now, please welcome.
Okay, everybody else, remember.
Mark and Craig, Pop Brothers at Law, learning the script. and never ever consenting to a search. Unless you're on probation or parole, what do you do? Shut the f up. And never consent. Shut the f up. Never consent. Shut the f up. And what do you say when the cop first comes up to you?
Why'd you come up to me or why'd you pull me over?
And he starts asking questions.
Not discussing my day or evening, sir. Am I being detained or am I free to go?
And if detained, what do you say?
Sir, I invoked the fifth.
And then what do you do?
I shut the f up.
They had to remake the video. The original was so much better. So, okay, Tim, you know, all right, everybody, you can tell Tim to take the earmuffs off. Tim, talk to the police and be as detail oriented as possible. Just if you kind of half remember something, it's better to tell them, Tim, than it is to say you're not sure. Honestly, just blather. Just start speaking about all sorts of things. Impressions you have, things that you remember. Just be completely honest and, you know, over explain, really. All right, chat. Tim Pool's dad.
Well, that's what the birth certificate said. I'd have to ask his mom, though, to be sure.
I'd have to ask his mom to be sure. I'd have to ask his mom to be sure. That's what the birth certificate says. I actually think he's onto something. I don't think this is really Tim Pool's dad. This is Tim Pool's purported dad, according to the birth certificate. But this guy seems to have a functioning empathy. It seems like Tim Pool's congenitally not equipped with that.
Well, okay, so
Yes, this is Tim's dad.
I don't. Yeah, I've seen you comment before on our show, so I just want to. This is the same Tim Pool's dad that had commented before.
And we can't confirm this,
Correct.
but says you, and we'll
We're taking your
operate
word for
that.
it.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's see your
It's
beanie.
the same guy that was happy with your response when you were on Tim's show, you know, and that I argued calling you a PDF based upon your against book banning was moronic. But
Right.
yeah, it's me.
Oh well.
What's
Now,
your reaction?
I'm here to talk to you. Now, I'm not going to crap on my son.
You
He's
just
still my
did,
son.
but
I
it's okay.
disagree with many of his productions. And if you watch, I do have videos that address when I disagree with his productions.
Well, so
Amazing. Mike, do you have a P.O. box? I've got some 6 AFSCME 2975 local t-shirts. My P.O. box is P.O. I would highly suggest that you send it ASAP. I wouldn't send anything after next week. I'm going to get a new P.O. box. My contract is ending. And I have a bunch of other P.O. box stuff I haven't opened from like my birthday 6 months ago, which I apologize to everybody who sent me things. Just know that I have them. Because it says to Violet S, I don't know if it's actually mine until I open it. But don't worry, I still have it. I'm keeping it. It's close to my heart. Don't you worry. I will open it soon. TM. You ever gonna make some t-shirts, buddy? The thing about merch is I don't like the slave labor that's involved in clothes. That being said, I think that there's a way of doing it. There's a company that's doing it right that I need to like follow up with. The shirts are gonna be more expensive then. Union workers do that stuff too? No. Not very often. Like you could get union printed stuff, but getting union made shirts is pretty hard. Like didn't Hassan like buy all the American union made blanks in the entire country when he did his merch? Like there's like they used to be a massive industry in the US, but Clinton destroyed it. All right, let's keep going. We'll come back to that.
you do have a YouTube channel, right? What's your reaction to this story that essentially Tim seems to have gotten money via unwittingly, but from Russian assets, essentially, who want there to be more anti-Ukraine content out there?
Well, most of the production on the right supports, unfortunately, what Russia wants to sell. Now, me personally,
I've talked about this before, but that's because the American right, what they want to do is have a fascist alliance. And the fascists in Europe and America rightly believe that Putin is the leading fascist leader in the world. That's the reality, okay? And so they want to persuade Putin to abandon China and join the United States and Europe in a petro alliance where Russia provides cheap gas and oil to Europe and cuts off China. This is all about creating a bloc that of sufficient strength to attack and contain China, because they rightfully see China's model of state capitalist development led by a communist party to be a legitimate threat to U.S. hegemony in the world. China's development has reached a point where its economy and military are going to start being capable of challenging and even surpassing the United States. So in order to arrest that growth, the United States is far right wants to ally with Putin. And they're willing to give up Ukraine. They don't give it. They're like, who gives a f about Ukraine? Let's give Putin Ukraine. Let's copy Putin's method of governance in America. Let's crack down on the left. Let's crack down on racial and ethnic and sexual minorities and do this kind of like Christian nationalist alliance with Europe, the United States, and Russia, and try to contain China. That's what they're trying to do. Okay, it's not very complicated. In fact, there's a certain logic to it. It's not that it's not a completely crazy idea. I mean, the alternative of like what, allying with Europe against Russia and China, like the Biden administration strategy is, you know, they see Russia and China as too naturally linked to oppose. They're going to try to destroy Russia and China's economies through sanctions and financial hampering, trade. They want to physically contain China through alliances with Taiwan, South Korea, Japan, Australia, Vietnam, India. So they have like a southern containment strategy where the United States lines up with, you know, the Philippines, etc., to contain China and the South China Sea and get Europe to stop trading with China, bottle up China's economy, and then hopefully put it into recession or stagnation, which will undermine the Communist Party's domestic support, right? Because the Chinese Communist Party has said to the people of China, hey, as long as we keep making your life better year after year, you will continue to support us as the party that governs China. And that's the deal that the Chinese people have made with the Chinese Communist Party, which is like, hey, as long as our lives are better than the year before, you have legitimacy. And, you know, President Xi has like insane approval rating among Chinese people. There is a legitimate, like, he's legitimate in the eyes of the Chinese people. There's no doubt about that, according to the evidence. It doesn't mean that they're, you know, Chinese people love their government and are all like, you know, communist cadre or something. But that seems to be what the evidence from places like Harvard indicates, is that for the most part, the national Chinese government is pretty well supported by the Chinese people. Europeans genuinely hate Russians. Not going to happen. I mean, JP Swede, I'm just telling you what the strategy that the right wing wants. And here's the thing. I happen to agree with you. I think Eastern Europeans are Nazis, and they don't want anything to do with, especially the ones that are bordering Russia, right? Like, for the most part, they're not interested in having any of these kind of alliances. All right, let's keep going.
I go with the DOJ. All right, because what they're saying is these YouTubers, Ruben and Tim, contracted with a company in Tennessee that was owned by two Canadians.
Yeah, Xi just did a whole big Africa conference. I considered covering it. I'm considering covering it, but you know, it's just basically China being like, we're going to, you know, give a lot of development aid to Africa. We're going to do free trade with African products into China to help develop, you know, Africa's economy, etc., etc., etc.
Yes. Now, what's the due diligence expected to find out exactly where all the money comes from? Now, I don't support his use. You know, most of his products don't really concern me. A lot of them are social things that don't really make a difference. But when I hear, you know, views on the LGBTQ, or when I see things about the Ukraine, look, the Ukraine didn't ask for Russia to invade. So,
South Africa, I will bricks post so hard for some of that money. Please, Russia, contact me. No, don't. You're going to end up black bagged.
I like money going out to Ukraine. I don't like money going to anybody when we have a $36 trillion deficit.
We don't have a $36 trillion deficit. Okay? That's not what deficit means.
Okay, but if we don't stop Putin like we didn't with Crimea,
the national
he's gonna be
debt.
emboldened. So we have to at least support Ukraine, or we're going to eventually put our own people on the ground, and I don't support that.
Why would we do that? Are we putting our people on the ground to stop the Israelis from annexing the West Bank? Are we putting our people on the ground in Azerbaijan? Are we putting our people on the ground? Like, what are you talking about? Why would we put our people on the ground?
That. But right now, I'm looking at this from the DOJ's perspective, and until they get a better look into the investigation, I'm going to defer to them that all Ruben, Tim, and these other guys did was take the money and run. And Tim, on his show, said that he basically just licensed the production that he already does for them to show. So people on the left or right are going to take their own viewpoints. I'm trying to be impartial and non-biased when I deal with my son as when I deal with all left or rights. I've gone into some left-leaning publications that I get called out when I actually give an unbiased look into it, and they start, FMing me because it doesn't coincide with their echoes. And so I try to be true. I try to be impartial. I don't agree with a lot of his productions, and then I voice it. Now, I don't directly attack the person. I attack the production. And when people start attacking the person, like when Tim called you a PDF because you were against book banning, I'm like, no, you just lost the disagreement because now you're not addressing the individual topic. You're going after the person. So that's my viewpoints, and that's where I stand on most of that.
Mr. Poole, I want a question,
Sure, go ahead.
for you.
Yep.
His first initial response is saying that he's in fact a victim of this. What's your reaction to that? Do you think that's an advised way to, respond to this?
Well,
Why is he even publicly inserting himself into his son's situation? Because he's not very bright. I don't know what else to say. Leaving aside the fun for a second, I think every one of us has, relatives who have dumbass fucking takes. And I can tell you right fucking now that obviously it's hilarious to see an enemy personally betrayed by their family. But at the same time, what the fuck are you even doing, bro? Why don't you call your son and tell him stop into being such a piece of you know what I mean? It's just weird.
No, I mean, PR is a big moneymaker in this world, and if you don't respond properly, you just yourself. So calling yourself a victim probably isn't the way to go. I mean, that's acting like a victim has no control over what happens. It's like when somebody says she asked for it because she had a high skirt. Well, she doesn't come out and say she's a victim because she wore a skirt. So, yeah, probably not the best choice of words, but a lot of the times in his video productions, I don't like his choice of words.
Yeah.
But he's selling a product to people that want to buy the product. So as long as he's not complicit with Russia, I'm going to not him. I'm not going to him.
Well,
we don't want
that either.
When you commit treason for money, you get the death penalty. It's not very complicated. Do people just not think there's any consequences for their actions? I think that's actually a big problem in American society. That's why I've been a little bit more in favor of using force, is because I think too many Americans do structurally evil with absolutely no consequences. I'm not talking about poor people sleeping on the side of the street or something. I'm talking about the elite in this country. They need to be held to account. How many people do you think would be doing mortgage fraud if a lot of bankers got life in prison for doing the financial crisis in 2008? Do you think they might be a little bit more unwilling to do financial fraud if they were getting massive punishments as a class? If they thought ooh, if I break the law on here, I'm going to get personally held accountable. I'm going to have all my money taken. I'm going to go to prison. See, the type of people that are sociopaths, you have to raise the cost of committing these financial and social crimes. And taking a whole bunch of money, like Tim Poole did, is treason. Jokes aside, or if you're capital punishment. Here's what I always say about capital punishment. My response is it's complicated. I don't believe that capital punishment is an effective or useful tool for civil crimes or for, you know, social crime, for crimes in society. Like if a guy gets super drunk and then drives it, does has a DUI, some people in an accident, that guy doesn't deserve the death penalty. If somebody tries to rob a liquor store and it goes sideways and somebody is, I don't think that guy deserves the death penalty, because there's all sorts of like problems of proof and like, you know, evidence and coercion, and our certainty around crimes like that is usually a lot less than people think. Okay, so in general, I would be against the death penalty for you know, for those kind of crimes, the regular everyday, you know, horrifying shit that happens in society that we don't like and we think deserves punishment. I don't think I would support the death penalty for that. But I do support the death penalty for social crimes. So stuff like, you know, if you're a CEO at a baby formula factory and the inspectors come to you and say, hey, like, you know, the pipes are, there's pinholes in the pipes and it's causing bacteria to get into the formula. And, you know, we've gotten reports that babies have gotten sick. And you're just like, I don't give a shit. Keep selling the baby formula with the bacteria. That person deserves a death penalty. Like if you're a person who is like, sir, this car, you know, it has a fatal flaw, and if it gets hit from behind in a regular, you know, rear-ended accident, it explodes and like, you know, kills the passengers, and it would cost us like $10 a car to reinforce the fuel tank, and you're like, nah, save the $10. Death penalty for that guy. That's what I'm talking about. I don't think that, you know, because those people are in positions of power and prestige and wealth. Like a CEO of a major company is rich as fuck, has all of the lawyers in the world, is the one who's directly responsible for making the decisions, you know, and if he decides to preference like a small amount of profit over dozens of human lives, we have to come on down on those people with a hammer. And so I fully support when, you know, China, for example, CEOs or billionaires. I fully support that. As long as it goes through like, you know, a legal process, beyond a reasonable doubt, you know, due process, the evidence is examined fairly, you know, that's different. I'm against the death penalty, period. So you don't think Hitler should have gotten the death penalty? Like, assume Hitler had surrendered instead of shooting himself. Do you think we should have not Hitler? Nope, let them rot. That is absolutely the most insane thing I've ever heard. In fact, I believe we didn't have nearly enough Nazis. Way too many Nazis got off. Well, let me just say this. Nobody agrees with you. Okay, you're wrong. Millions of people died in battle and combat to overturn Hitler. Those lives are worth more than Hitler's lives, and it would be an abomination to allow Hitler to walk around and be in a luxury prison. You're insane. You're actually insane. You know, Hitler was arrested for treason, right? And they gave him a slap on the wrist. He was prosecuted for treason, and they gave him a slap on the wrist, and he went to prison, and that's where he dictated Mein Kampf. And then he came out and did the Holocaust. You know, like if they had executed Hitler for doing the beer hall putsch the first time, there wouldn't have been like right wingers to give him like a slap on the wrist and a pardon to come out and do World War II and the Holocaust. So your entire logic is disproven in the specific category of person I'm talking about. I'm not talking about just executing people willy-nilly for everyday crimes, even horrible crimes like, you know, a wife kills her husband, or a husband kills the wife, or somebody gets killed in a robbery, or, you know, somebody drunk drives. I'm not saying that. I'm talking about a very specific class of people. I think the elite should be held to a higher standard. This is just my personal opinion. If you disagree with it, that's fine. You asked.
I'm curious though. I mean,
discredit permanently.
So what I'm trying to say is that's the distinction I make in my mind for supporting things like the Nuremberg trials, right? Like I support Nazis after World War II. I support Japanese imperialists from Unit 731. You know, like I think that is morally right. I thought it was good, and I support it.
There's been a lot of money pouring in, I guess, for Tim and for his, you know, I obviously I went to his compound. I saw where he's at there. I mean, what's your reaction to how much money Tim has really been making in this space?
Chatter's logic is death is an easy way out. It's not about, I don't give a shit about Hitler's subjective punishment. First of all, I think that's weird. It's not about making Hitler feel pain or something. It's about destroying the symbol that Hitler represents. Hitler represents Nazism. Hitler represents the racial theories of Aryan supremacy. And to see Hitler destroyed by the so-called Untermensch, and to see his political movement utterly extirpated, was a good thing. And the longer he continues to exist, the more threat he is to society. Like, if Hitler is in a prison cell, that means the prison cell could be opened and he could walk out, which is exactly what happened. Hitler was able to do the Holocaust because he wasn't appropriately punished the first time.
Even though obviously you have some disagreements with what he's put.
Would you rather him publicly killed or publicly tortured for the rest of his life? The answer is humanely, because that shows a humane society. It shows a weird sadistic joy in the pain of others to do torture. We're better than Hitler. We don't do torture. Torture is wrong. Torture is more about satisfying the sadistic pleasure of the torturer than it is about the tortured. Torture is about domination and feeling powerful. It's not about punishment. It's not about the victim. It's about the perpetrator. It's a sign of moral depravity. I fear that what you propose to be used for good, like you've described, it might be twisted for use against the innocent, especially given the history of our legal system's treatment of racial minorities. I mean, I created an entire class about the elite. So, listen, any idea can be twisted. It is what it is. What if we let the victims torture the torturer? My guess is that most victims of torture wouldn't torture their torturer. Because as I said before, torture is more about the torturer than the tortured. And like, personally, I think that, the Puyi, what the Communist Party did with Puyi, there's never been a person who should have been executed more than the last emperor of China. But what did the communists do? They focused on rehabilitation and forgiveness and truth and reconciliation. And honestly, it's beautiful. So if you're going to make an argument against me, this is the best argument to make. There, I just gave you the evidence that the death penalty is bad. Go read about Puyi and the communist decision to be as lenient with him as possible and how it worked out really well. I just think it's absolutely insane. Like, if somebody was like, you support the Nazis, would you have done it? If you're saying, like, just because it has a negative effect on the person who does it, therefore we should have executed the Nazis, that's insane in my opinion. I think it's absolutely awesome that whenever a Nazi posts on Twitter about how, he wants to exterminate the Jews or deport, people, I can say, follow your leader. I can post pictures of the Nuremberg trial results, and that is good. And that intimidates Nazis because they only understand force because they're fucking evil. And there is some people like that out there. I'm sorry that, I know that a lot of people, especially on the left, want to believe that we've reached the point where there aren't any enemies. There aren't any class enemies. There aren't any Nazis. There aren't people that are willing to do the most depraved things. And then I assert that you are just not being serious if you're against it. Because, like, look what's happening in Israel right now. They have a torture camp. They're civilians who are not proved guilty of any crime. They're shoving M16 rifles up the of innocent Palestinian men and them to death with the gun barrels.
And I feel sad that I have to come up
Okay,
here
shut up, Trump.
and explain it. I have all this legal talent,
Fuck?
but legal talent cannot overcome
Where is this even playing
rigged
from?
judges. They can't overcome a
That randomly played. Okay. Like, what if we go to arrest those people and stop them from torturing people, and they resist? What do you do in that situation? They resist. They grab guns. They start shooting. Like, it is what it is. Either we allow them to continue their torture fest, or we stop them by any means necessary, up to including lethal force. If you don't agree with that, I just fundamentally think you're wrong. So anyway, don't Fed post, for the love of God. I'm talking about hypotheticals about crime and punishment of adjudicated war crimes. Okay.
In Russia, something, and slowly brought over to
Your
America.
logic is not sequitur. We don't need to tolerate the death penalty. Okay, you didn't. Okay, well, I disagree with you. I have absolutely no problem with the Nazis being executed. I'd do it again. It was a good thing. I support it. I support the execution of Nazis at Nuremberg. And if you disagree with that, I think you're stupid. There, I said it.
You know, I can't comment to how much he's making. I mean, yeah, he puts on a show and he shows a skateboard park. I'm like, me personally, if I was making money on my videos, I wouldn't be telling you how much I'm making. I mean, not to be, hiding or anything, but if you're in a business and you don't tell the people giving you money to support your product that you're going out and spending it on a skateboard park or thing. So I don't agree with him on showing it, but I don't know how much he makes. I don't talk to him about his money, his business. It's his. I don't, people challenging me on my videos saying that I'm jealous of his success and I want his money. And I'm like, where do you think I live? Do you think I'm in the gutter somewhere? Or I don't need his money. So what's your, they're just
well, then
trolls
people may ask Mr. Poole, why call into our show?
It's Mike.
Oh,
It's
Mike.
Well, no, because I watch your show and I put in comments, sometimes and this is a discussion.
Sure.
And I think a lot of people, I don't like, I'm not, who's the man with the beard? I'm lousy on names.
Sam Cedar.
Or Matt Bender.
No, not Sam.
For good, moral, empathetic people, taking a life is traumatic no matter how awful the person. Supporting the death penalty for anyone means that somebody has to deal with the death, and that part is equally problematic.
You're talking about me right here, then I'm Matt.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, Matt seems pretty... See, I always listen to make sure that people are trying to be fair and not biased, and you guys seem to present that pretty good. And Matt is speaking fairly, where most people are going to sit there and start, calling Tim a complete Russian asset that he was raised, but Matt seemed pretty fair, and that's what I'm looking at. I'm just like, I don't want social platforms to be left or right. I want impartiality, and I want both sides of the story. And Matt seems to be putting it out there in a fair, unbiased way. So I thought I'd call in and put in my 2 cents because, like I say, I only go with the DOJ, and I get into arguments with my sons because they
This isn't really Tim Pool's dad. Yes, it is. It's Tim Pool's dad.
A preponderance of the evidence. Well, no, I need definitive facts before I hang you. I'm not going to hang you based upon hearsay or things like that, and that's why we disagree. I'm more definitive, legally based when I hang somebody.
Right.
That
I
sense.
first of all, I appreciate that, Mike. And
by the way, I'm mostly anti-death penalty. Like, if you said, would you ban the death penalty in the United States right now? I would probably vote in favor of that because the way the death penalty is done in the United States is wasteful. It's stupid. It's not very accurate. Like, innocent people have been killed. I would end the death penalty in the United States. But you said, do you oppose the death penalty completely? And the answer, I am honest, is no. I think that for certain social crimes and certain war crimes, we should be willing to execute symbols of pure evil. Like Benjamin Netanyahu should be for war crimes. Like that, obviously, I don't think it should be done summarily. I don't think it should just be done on the street or something. I think he should be brought to an international tribunal, just like the Nuremberg trials. The evidence should be brought forward. I believe the evidence is sufficient right now that he's guilty of those war crimes. And I think at the end of the day, it would be far better if he were to be executed after, a trial, investigated all the evidence and came to a conclusion beyond a reasonable doubt. And I think that's symbolic, that symbolism of, look at this man who had ultimate power over life and death and the people in Gaza, and the international community came together and we said, your crimes are beyond forgiveness and you must be held personally accountable. I think that would be far better for human civilization than putting him in a cushy prison in Norway, okay, where he could write more about how Palestinians deserve to be. All right. I think that if every prime minister and president in the world saw Benjamin Netanyahu for his crimes against humanity through a properly constituted international tribunal process, it would give a lot more of them pause than whatever else you're going to say. And I don't think there's any confusion about who's guilty of what's going on in Gaza. He is the ultimate person responsible. He's at the top. He's the decision maker. There's no confusion. There's no we're not really sure it was him, like if there was a robbery or something. And I will never, if you're trying to be philosophically consistent, I don't care if you think you're philosophically consistent or not. Why do you need to be why do you need the category of death penalty to be something that is just not touchable by you. I mean, we use death. We're constantly dealing out death to the poor in this world. It's like what are you talking about? There's social murders. There is literal genocide that we support. There is police shooting people on the street who are unarmed. And people want to talk about, oh, I don't think we should execute Netanyahu because I'm against the death penalty. It's like, Jesus fucking Christ. That's a hypothetical that's not even going to happen. Pathetic.
I want to say that from what it looks like, you just looking at the evidence and everything.
At what point down the chain of command do we stop executing war criminals? I think that's a reasonable question. I think it's probably my conception of responsibility extends much deeper, but I would definitely say general staffs, general staff means generals, admirals, senior government officials, people who had policy making power.
It appears that that's the story that we know to be true as of right now, and that is that people like Poole and Rubin were not told the full information. Now we can talk about how they should have gotten more information, and they should have, but with what they did know, they did not have any idea that there was two RT employees at the behest of the Russian government working to basically build up this tenant media channel using Tim Pool and Dave Rubin and Benny Johnson's audience. But like I did say, I do think that they picked those individuals because they felt like that they had already aligned with their interests based on, what they previously have said in videos.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to start buying somebody's videos unless they reference what I'm trying to sell. Okay,
right.
So 100%. And like I say, that's fair. When I get out there, I expect people to address the topic, not because they dislike.
Dice Clay says having Netanyahu and Sinwar defend themselves in The Hague with a fuel tribunal would be the best thing for the world. That discovery alone will be world changing. I agree with you. That's what I want to see. I want to see Sinwar and Netanyahu prosecuted. And as far as I know, Hamas has said they will submit to the International Criminal Court if Netanyahu submits to it. So this isn't even, they said they will defend themselves in the International Court. It is Israel that has attacked the International Court. So you think that England should have killed Napoleon instead of island banishment? I mean, I don't really support the British Empire. But I just think from the practical point of view, it would have been far smarter for them to kill him than to put him on the island. As it turned out, that was right.
Like Tim or Rubin because of the products they sell. And believe me, I'm not going out there telling people I appreciate Tim and his podcast and his position. Like I say, if you look at some of the videos, I think I started a long time ago, like a year ago, and I put out 1,000. I keep them short, 5 minutes, and I try to just give my perspective, whether it's life in general or if it's addressing one of Tim's. I don't do it a lot, but I just try to, I'm a Marine, I'm a firefighter. I got a few things in my brain that I might be able to share, and that's what I do. Now, in this instance, am I defending Tim? Am I being biased? I'm just deferring to the DOJ. Now, until they come out with the whole story. Now, quickly, as a fireman, we would be at incidents, a fire, an explosion, car. We'd get back to the firehouse and we'd turn on the news. And guess what? They're talking about where we just came from, and they are totally wrong. They're trying to be the first to address the topic to try to get you to zoom.
This is what you need to know about journalists. Journalists, whenever you read a news article about something you actually understand, you'll see how many errors are in the journalists' reporting. That's true of every single topic. It's just the ones that you're an expert in, you notice the errors. But when you trust a journalist in areas that you're not expert in, you're getting fed a lot of bullshit. Doesn't mean journalists are bad per se. It's just you should not take things that are in mainstream media to heart without multiple confirming pieces of evidence. It can be hard not to do that, but it is what it is.
Zoom in to stay with their channel, and then eventually they get it right. So I always kind of defer till let's get the whole story before you hang somebody. That's all. And you guys are seeing, I like the way you report. You're pretty, you called him out for some, idiotic questions, but for the most part, I think you're fair on both sides of the fence when you address topics, and that's why I'm actually talking to you.
I appreciate that. Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Do you, we'll let you go in a sec, but do you have a sense of, does Tim like your videos? Does he appreciate, you calling?
Has he ever mentioned them at all?
Into this show? Yeah. Does he mention them? I mean, I know that, I don't think he has very kind feelings about myself or Sam, or Matt Binder for that matter. So I guess I'm just interested what his perspective is on you watching our show and calling in.
Oh, I don't discuss politics. I got into an hour-long, disagreement with my other son, going back and forth over alternate or fake electors. And luckily my hike didn't take me long at all because I didn't realize where I was. But yeah, I mean, we don't discuss, his topics. I don't even know. I asked him once if he knew I had my own video production. I don't think he pays attention to things that really aren't impacting him. And I mean, he is pretty busy pushing, selling, doing his things, and more power to him. He's created something. And now if he owned a gun shop, I don't think I'd be happy with him selling guns. But it is a product that people buy. So am I going to hate him because
Centrists. People are buying his bullshit, so I guess I'm not going to hate him for it because people want it. The brain of a centrist. Obviously, that argument falls apart immediately with any kind of examination.
He's producing something that half of the people want to listen to. Unfortunately, I have always questioned, where does the money come on both sides? You can't divide America unless you have two sides, and we have both sides. And
both sides. On the one side, you have the people that want to the blacks, and the other side, you have people who think they're human beings who should be treated equally. We need both sides. Do you see that it's kind of a dumb point.
Maybe we need to look at see where all the money comes in. I don't know whether it's revenue from the video productions, if it's donations, because you have memberships now. And usually I don't even go to a place. If I can't comment without paying a membership, I move on.
I hear you.
Right.
All right.
That's why I like you guys. Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for the kind words. Appreciate it. And where can people find your YouTube channel, Mike?
Tim Pool's dad. It's just Tim Pool's dad.
Tim Pool's dad. All right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But like I say, I aggravate a bunch of people, and I love dealing with ignorant trolls that attack me personally rather than the topic because it's just so easy to debate.
Do you hear from Tim's audience, and are those the types that you're talking about? Like, do they get angry that you disagree with your son on political topics?
Oh, yeah, they're the ones that call me and say I'm jealous of his success. And a lot of times I'll actually go into his video productions, and then I call out the stupid people that are making stupid comments, and they just love that. I mean, I'm just saying, like, they'll say something like the alternate electors, why is that criminal? Well, because the state didn't pick them. They decided themselves. So they are fake by statute, not by my interpretation. And that's when they call off saying, "Oh, you just want his money," and I'm just like, "What are you insane?" I mean, and I did a video the other day about success, because they're comparing me. They say, "Well, Elon's more intelligent and successful than you." I said, "Well, first off, you don't know me, you don't know him, so you don't know how intelligent we are. And second, success is a subjective interpretation. So, I've got everything I need. I got a wife, a beautiful wife, my dog, my family I talk to. So for me, being a Marine and a former firefighter, yeah, I think I've been pretty successful in my life. And I think people, are
more honorable life than Elon Musk.
Well, what I'm just saying is, when I finally take my last breath, I'll remember all the people I was able to help when they were in their worst possible situation. And I'll find comfort in that as I close those eyes. That's what I find as being successful. None of my kids they're not in prison yet, so I'm going for that so far.
There you go.
There you go. Well, I appreciate the sentiment, and thank you for being so open-minded and calling in and giving us your perspective on what's happening.
And for listening.
With Tim and for listening. Yeah, of course.
Well, like I said, your crews and everything seem pretty pretty fair. I haven't had anybody MFing me yet in the, in the comments or anything. And like I say, your perspective doesn't have to match mine, and that doesn't mean one's wrong. And that's what I try to explain to people. You can see something from a different side than me. We can have different perspectives, but it doesn't mean either one of us are wrong. We can discuss it and determine why they're different. That's all.
Precisely.
Here.
But I appreciate you guys. I think you are a truthful organization that puts out counter, thoughts. And, the problem is here we can't discuss to find out how to fix the problem. We just want to throw rocks at the other people for having a problem. And we're not going to get anywhere until we finally decide to address the problem in a manner to try to fix it rather than making money by volleying it back and forth. And I'm not crapping on you guys. I'm just saying this is the way it goes. We go back and forth. And now you're going to have people on the left.
Like this is what happens. Like this type of conversation, we need to start making fun of people that say this. Like I think there is a certain desire to be nice to people and like bring them in. And the problem is though that when people get called in to talk about something they don't know anything about, they do this kind of shit. They do this kind of posturing, which is like, well, I think it's important to listen to both sides because you don't have to actually know anything to say that. It's a way of like covering up your lack of knowledge. And a lot of people aren't trained. Like if you don't know what you're talking about, like you shouldn't have an opinion, right? Like if you don't know what you're talking about, you shouldn't have an opinion, right? You should be quiet and you should learn. And if you're an educated, intelligent person, you know how to learn. You know how to do research. You know how to form an informed opinion. You know who's worthy of trust and who's not worthy of trust. It's impossible to know everything there is to know. Okay? But the solution when you're asked a question about something outside of your knowledge is not to just bullshit about how we need to listen to both sides. You need to be like, well, I don't really know much about that. I'm going to look into it more. Unless you're me, what do I talk about that I don't know about? What do I talk about that I don't know about? Do you hear me talking about fucking jazz? Do you hear me talking about surgical techniques? I just don't talk about things I don't know about. I talk about the things. Now, I know a lot of shit about a lot of stuff because I've done a lot of things and I've studied a lot and I went to a lot of school and I worked in politics. That covers quite a lot of stuff. It gives me a very wide range of knowledge to draw from to talk about things. It may seem like I know everything, but that would be wrong. It's a loose platitude to keep things non-confrontational, but there's no both sidesing, power differential, systemic disenfranchisement, militarized police, etc.